All right, folks. Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here tonight. My topic is going to be life lessons, and I break that down life lessons, learned it from experience. There's a lot of things we can talk about, and probably we'll talk about today. But for me, the overall lesson is to transition from employee mindset to entrepreneur mindset. And whether you evolve over the next few years or you make a radical transformation over the next couple of days, that's your decision. Because once you're determined to learn something, no one can stop you. But when you're unwilling to learn, no one can help you. And I say this a lot. I've said a lot of things a lot. Seems like I'm always saying something. The economy really isn't the problem, and the government or the stock market really isn't the solution, in my opinion. The solution is getting a better understanding of how wealth is created. The solution is to discipline yourself to get what you want so others don't discipline you to get what they want. And for me, that's the difference between being an employee. Someone else disciplines you to get what they want. And if they don't get what they want, they simply discard you and get someone else. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to discipline yourself to get what you want. And so to me, that's the real solution, to discipline ourselves to get what we want so others don't have to discipline us to get what they want. Now, there's an equation that I use all the time, and I think it explains what actually creates success. I'm just going to skim through it very briefly. Most of you have seen it, and you'll see it over and over and over if you listen to me. And that equation is simply that the financial vehicle you choose times your skill set in that vehicle, times your work ethic in that vehicle, times your mindset equals your success. Now, what's interesting to me is that the financial vehicle is only 25% of the equation, but almost 100% of the people who say they tried Amway, did not have success, almost 100% of the people say that they did not have success because of the Amway vehicle. Well, that would be easier to believe if that same vehicle had not worked for millions of people all over the world for the last 60 years, and literally for millions of people in 100 countries and territories, people of every age, race, religion, gender, socioeconomic level. And so blaming the financial vehicle, which is only 25% of the equation, is probably not totally accurate. Now, all the odds of you being a success in the Amway business are explained in the official Amway literature, and the odds are very well laid out. What's interesting is a few weeks back, we had a vascular surgeon to become an IBO on Dr. AJ's team. And he said something very interesting. He said, you know, I read all the disclaimers, all the Amway disclaimers, and the odds of making it to the top levels in Amway. And he said, I realized that the odds are actually better than the odds of me becoming a vascular surgeon. And since I've already become a vascular surgeon and overcome those odds, he said, I'm pretty confident about becoming a success in the Amway business. The truth is that there's odds in everything that we do. And I understand why Amway has to list all those disclaimers and all those odds. But the truth is, most of you have already overcome odds in other areas of your life. The odds of being born in a certain country, the odds of being in a certain profession, the odds of marrying a certain person, the odds of having a certain number of children. All of those odds are very, very small, very great odds. So let's talk about a couple of lessons, and some of the lessons that I call life lessons. Some lessons we learn very quickly, and we remember them for a long time. For example, like touching a hot stove. You learn very quickly not to do that again. Shutting your fingers in a door. You learn very quickly, don't do that again. Falling off a ladder. Hopefully you only have to learn that lesson once. Other lessons that I've learned mostly the hard way, don't look up when you're using a table saw and the neighbor backs out of his driveway. That's why this finger looks a little jacked up there. Don't try to make one last cut on a router when you're in a hurry. That's why this thumb's a little bit jacked up there. So some lessons you just get to learn, the hard way. Now, I told my beautiful wife, who is absolutely amazing, we've been happily married 46 years. We've been married 48, but happily married 46 years. No, I'm kidding. We've been happily married 46 out of 46. And I told my beautiful, amazing wife the other day, I said, you've stood by me when I cut my finger. You stood by me when I went blind in one eye for some crazy thyroid disease. You stood by me when I fell off a ladder and shattered my heel. You stood by me when I went deaf in one ear, forget which ear it is, this ear. You stood by me when I cut my thumb, and everything else I've ever done, you've been right by my side. So I've come to one conclusion. You're actually bad luck. So now that's obviously not true. That's called humor right there. But my beautiful wife has stood by me. We got married for better or for worse. And I say I could not have done any better, and she could not have done much worse. Again, that's called humor for those who don't quite get that. And then another saying that love is blind, but a couple of years of marriage will bring your sight back. So, but that's enough talk about me. Let's talk about you. So what do you think about me? Okay, again, that's called humor right there. A friend of mine who was on a blind date that my wife set up for him was just talking constantly. And this lady that my wife had set him up a blind date with, she just was like, he never shuts up. And so he basically said, that's enough talk about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? So that's just a little attempt for me to kind of relax here. Now, other lessons we learn slowly, but we seem to forget quickly. Some lessons we learn quickly, forget. We learn quickly and remember a long time. Hot stove, fingers in the door. Other lessons we learn slowly, but seem to forget quickly. So we get to repeat those lessons. Now, most of us have heard, and we probably have even said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. We've heard that, we've said that. So what do? We put all of our eggs in one basket. And then when something happens to our eggs, we get to learn that lesson all over again. We say, don't get all your eggs from one chicken. So what do? We get all of our eggs from one chicken, and something happens to the chicken, we get to learn that lesson all over again. We say, don't get all your baskets from one basket weaver. And the point is that we simply get to repeat some lessons over and over and over. And that's okay, because that's part of life. It's how we learn. Now, I just hope you don't make excuses or blame others for the lessons that you get to repeat. Because when we blame others or focus on what we cannot change or cannot control, then we get frustrated, or at least I do. But when we focus on what we can control and what we can change, then we get liberated. So the question that we should ask ourselves is, do I want to be more frustrated, or do I want to be more liberated? Now, another life lesson I've learned over and over is trying to go too far with too few. It's always good to have a few extra legs, a few spare legs. Most of us have a spare tire in our car. We wouldn't know how to change it, most of us, but we have AAA. but we have a spare just in case. It's always good to have a few extra legs because life happens. Or as Bill Britt would say, crap happens. And it normally happens when you least expect it, or certainly when you can least handle it. There's no convenient time for crap to happen. And so trying to go too far with too few, and as again, we're all very optimistic, and that's a good thing. But we also have to be realistic. And Bill Britt taught us all to sponsor 15 to 20 legs, our level and above. That's our ambition level. And then you'll find 3 or 4 that are ready to grow now, and 3 or 4 that may grow later. And then you do that again once you go platinum. So you sponsor another 15 to 20 legs, your ambition level and above. So you're always profitable, and you never need any one leg, and you never need any one person. And I would just simply say, study Bill Britt's 66866 talk until you have it memorized, and then study it some more. Because that really is one of the best talks on how to not have to repeat that life lesson over and over and over. Don't try to go too far with too few. Now, another lesson is when we think we know it all. That's when we have the most to learn. School is never finished for the true professional. So I'll encourage you to be a lifelong learner. Most people, most of us, know just enough to think that we're right, but not enough to know that we're wrong. And that's been a very popular quote the last couple of weeks in social media. Most people know just enough to think they're right, but not enough to know they're wrong. And that's part of what I call the curse of knowledge. We let what we think we know keep us from learning what we need to know. Most of us think we're right. And we think we're right up to the point, and even past the point when we realize we're wrong. We still think we're right. It takes a very strong person to admit that they don't know something and to admit that they're wrong. It takes a very strong person to make adjustments. Another life lesson is you can never win the comparison game because you never have all the facts. When we compare our weak points to someone else's strong points, we lose. When we compare our sponsor or our upline's flaws with another upline's strengths, that's not a fair comparison. When the grass looks greener on the other side of the fence, that should inspire you to make your grass greener. It should not inspire you to jump the fence and eat somebody else's grass. That's not the lesson you should learn there. Just ask yourself a very simple question when you're thinking about jumping the fence. You're thinking about being disloyal to your upline. Just ask yourself a very simple question. Would I want my downline to compare my weaknesses to someone else's strengths? Would I want my downline to treat me the way I'm treating my upline? And now, obviously, that same life lesson applies to your spouses, applies to your children, applies to your business associates. The life lesson is simply you can never win the comparison game because you never really have all the facts. Now, I think Bill Britt was a genius for a lot of different reasons. One reason is he taught us the cardinal rules, and he taught us the 3 powers. And because they're consistent with what most of us know as the golden rule. Most of us learned as kids the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Do unto others the way you want others to do unto you. Treat others the way you want to be treated. is a golden rule, regardless of your age, race, religion, gender. It's just something most of us have heard, said, taught. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Now, I think you should take that to a little different level, and that is to simply treat others the way you want others to treat the people that you really care about. Treat every lady the way you want others to treat your wife. You treat every lady the way you want others to treat your mother, your daughter, your grandmother. Treat every man the way you want others to treat your son or your father or your grandfather. So the golden rule is certainly a good thing, but take it to the next level and treat others the way you want others to treat the people in your life that you really, really care about. Because every lady is somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's mother, somebody's niece. Every man is somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's husband or whatever. Now, I thank God every day that the BWW mentorship program is a values-based program. It's not just a skills-based, not just strategy-based, and certainly not gimmick-based. I thank God every day that BWW and Amway are built on a solid foundation of honesty, integrity, gratitude, and compassion. Values first and foremost, then skills, then strategies, techniques, but never any gimmicks. We're just not a gimmick-based business. It's just not who we are. We're not a gimmick-based mentorship program. It's just not who we are. Now, once in a while, someone will say to me, well, I'm just not interested in any of those get-rich-quick schemes. To which I simply say, well, I'm not either. But let me just actually say to you that I'm actually offended that you'd actually even think that I would be. So why would you even think that I would be interested in some sort of get-rich-quick scheme? That's actually offensive that you would assume that of me. Now, that's a little bit up in their face, but that's okay. Let's just be clear. And sometimes I simply ask because I'm a little bit Dane Bramage. I say, well, I'm really not interested in any sort of get-rich-quick scheme either. But let me just ask, are you interested in a get-poor-slow scheme? And of course, they look at me like I have three heads or something. I'm saying, well, of course, you're not interested in some sort of get-poor-slow. Who would want to get poor slow? That's just designed to make people think. Now, that normally starts another conversation, which is a good thing. Amway has never been pitched to me, and I've never pitched Amway to anyone as a get-rich-quick scheme. It's just not a scheme to start with, and it's certainly not a get-rich-quick scheme. But when somebody does say that, I just like to say, well, let me just ask you a question. I don't want to assume anything, because sometimes it's better to ask questions, better to investigate than to just assume. So I just say, well, let me just ask you a question, just for clarification. What is rich to you? What is 50,000 a year? Is that rich, or is it 150,000 a year? Is it 250,000 a year? Is it $1 million a year? Where is rich? What is rich to you, and what is quick to you? So again, I just sometimes like to get a little clarification when somebody says they're not interested in get-rich-quick scheme. Of course, we're not either. But I'm certainly not interested in stay poor slow or get broke slow or whatever. Now, another life lesson that I hope you'll learn quickly, and I hope you remember it for a long time, is that you need to do your homework in order to make your home work. And that's a little bit of a play on words, which I'm known to do that. You got to do your homework in order to make your home work. And let me explain that to you. Bill Britt taught 4 simple steps to success. Step number 1, Bill Britt said to decide what you really want. and put pictures of what you really want on your refrigerator, your mirrors, the TV screen, the car visor. Decide what you really want and put pictures everywhere to remind you of what you really want. Step number 2, decide what you'll postpone temporarily to get what you want. And don't let what you want now distract you from what you want most. Don't let what you want now distract you from what you want most. Step number 3, Bill said, decide who you will take advice from. As I've said many times, a good coach can change your game, but a great coach can change your life. So decide who you'll take advice from. And then step number 4 is to plan your work and work your plan. That means you put it in your calendar. You make it a priority in your calendar so someone else doesn't make their dreams a priority in your calendar. Because if you put it in your calendar, then it's a priority. And when somebody else says, hey, can you do such and such on such and such time of day, you say, let me check my schedule. No, I already have a priority in my schedule. I can do what you need me to do at a different time, but not at that time. So plan your work, work your plan. Again, we either discipline ourselves to get what we want, or someone else will discipline us to get what they want. So to make your homework, you have to block out time to work your business, and then schedule the time and schedule the money that you need for that particular task. That's how you make your homework. You put it in your schedule, block out the time, block out the money, set aside the money that you need to work your plan. Now, when my wife and I first looked at the Amway business, we really didn't know enough to say yes or to say no. So we did our homework. And what I mean by doing our homework is we read and we listened and we associated. We got our questions answered. Then after doing our homework, we decided to make our homework. So let me just explain that again. We did our homework by reading and listening so we could separate facts from fiction. We did our homework so we could separate facts from opinions. We listened to some success stories. We read some official Amway literature. We talked to people who are having success in their business because we wanted this to work for us. We wanted to have success. So we read, we listened, we associated so we could break what I call the curse of knowledge. And the curse of knowledge is when we let what we think we know keep us from learning what we need to know. Now, a lot of people have the curse of knowledge, especially about the Amway business. It's been around for 60 years. Odds are they know someone who's been part of the Amway business or knows someone who knows someone. So we wanted to break that curse of knowledge because we wanted this to work for us. Most people know just enough about Amway to be dangerous to themselves and anyone who would take their advice. So we read, we listened, and we associated with the people who are offering to help us so we could break that curse of knowledge. That's what I mean by we did our homework. There's also this concept called confirmation bias. And confirmation bias basically says that we recognize or even attract whatever is necessary to help us confirm whatever preconceived biases we have. Because we wanted this business to work for us, we recognized and even attracted what we needed to believe it could work for us. It's a confirmation bias. It basically is the same as if you think you can, you can. If you think you cannot, you probably cannot. As a person thinks, so they become. Okay, so we did our homework, and then we decided to make our homework for our own business and for our own family. And what I mean by that is we simply took some of the time and some of the money and some of the energy and some of the effort that we were using to make someone else's business work, and we used that time, money, effort, energy to make our own business work. Because the truth is, when you shop from someone else's store, or you shop from someone else's website or catalog, it takes time, it takes money, it takes effort, it takes energy to figure out how the website works, to get to the store, to figure out where the stuff is in the store, to get the stuff from the store back to your house. It takes time, effort, and energy to shop from someone else's business. So we simply took the time, the money, the effort that we were donating or spending or investing in someone else's business, and we decided to invest that in our own business. So we did our homework to get our questions answered. And then we made our homework by supporting our own business and our own family first. And that's what I mean by making our homework. Now, another life lesson is to keep some margins in your life. And let's just be honest. Most of us are drawn to extremes, especially those who are attracted to this business. We're just a little bit different. We're not sheeple. We don't like to go with the crowd. We don't go with the flow. We're not good just following, the sheep in front of us. We like to test the boundaries. We like to push ourselves. And going to the extremes can be good at the right time and in the right amounts in some areas of our life. But when it becomes a habitual way of life, and we're always pushing the limits, we're always going for the extreme. I call that walking on thin ice with hot shoes. It's not a question of when or if the ice will crack, it's just when. And so let's have a little margin in our life. Now, society, some people encourage you to work more, to sleep less, to burn the candle on both ends and set the middle on fire. They encourage us to stretch ourselves. And those are things that most of us do sporadically. Most of us do that on occasion, but hopefully not habitually. Because we're not designed to live with extreme calendars. We're not designed to live with extreme obsessions for work, life, physical health. We're not designed to live in the extremes habitually. We're designed to live within some margins. Now, margin is the time and the money and the energy that we hold back in order to maintain productivity, to maintain stability, to maintain our integrity. Margin in your calendar means you have time set aside. You're holding some time back to rest, to recharge, and to spend time with people that matter the most. Financial margin means you're living within your means or below your means. And it means that you change your lifestyle if needed. You're not trying to keep up the Joneses, because the Joneses are in debt to their eyeballs. They're broke, they're in debt. Number one cause of divorce, most of us know, is marriage. Thank you very much. The number one cause of divorce is marriage, but the number two cause of divorce is financial pressure. Now, that marriage was a little bit of humor. The audience here totally missed it. Okay, so we're not designed to live without margin. We're designed to have some margin in our life. Margin is a gift. And there are things to be gained by pushing the limits. There's also things to be gained by having margin. There's things to be gained by pushing the limits. There's also things to be gained by not pushing the limits, by having some margin. Relationships, restoration, contentment, peace. And those are all vital aspects of a healthy, productive life. Those are things that we must have sufficient amounts of if we're going to make a positive impact on others over time. We just need some margin in our life. We care best for others by caring for ourselves. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give from an empty life, an empty vessel. If you've ever been on an airplane, you know they always say, if something should happen, put your own oxygen mask on first, take care of yourself first, so then you can assist others. So we're not designed to have a life in the extreme always. Sporadically, sure. Habitually, no. So instead of always pushing the limits, create a little margin in your life so you can better honor yourself and better honor others, such as your family, your faith, etc. Now, most of us learned as kids not to write in the margins. Remember learning as kids, don't write in the margin, because you write in the margin, it just looks really confusing. It looks frustrating. The paper is crowded, it's crunched. It's just, when you write in the margins, you don't get a clear, clean picture. So that's the lesson, the life lesson of create some margins in your life. Then my last life lesson is to understand the difference between being planted or being buried. Now, they start off the same, but they end totally different. They both start with being overwhelmed, with being covered up. The stuff of life, the stuff of just crap. They start out the same, but they end totally different. If we just lay down and give up and we die, that's the end. That's a burial. It's over. We're buried. We just lay down and give up. It's over. But if we kick and scream and scratch and claw and never give up, then we'll eventually make our way back to the surface. And that's what it looks like to be planted. So whether we get buried by all the crap of life or we get planted depends on what we do next. It's always what we do next that matters most. If you're buried, you just lay down and give up. If you're planted, you kick and scream and push your way back to the top like a new little seedling. You're like a new creation. And that new little seedling over time will bear fruit. Now, it's going to take courage to pursue your dreams. It takes courage to forgive yourself. It takes courage to forgive others for whatever. It takes courage to live a life of significance. It takes courage to pursue your dreams, to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is a gift that keeps on giving, especially when we forgive ourselves for the stuff we should have done, shouldn't have done. And all of this temporary chaos has been a wake-up call for a lot of people. Now, I'm not the guy who's going to try to figure out who caused all this temporary chaos. That's for time in history. There will be a time somewhere in the future when all the truth will eventually surface. Time has a way of uncovering truth. The real question is, are we going to wake up? If all this temporary chaos is a wake-up call, the real question is, are we going to wake up? I'm not saying that God created this to wake us up. I'm not saying some man created this to wake us up. I'm not saying some evil conspiracy created this to take over the world. I'm not trying to fix the blame. I'm not trying to tell anyone else what to think. I'm simply asking, what are we going to do in the midst of this temporary chaos? What are we going to learn from all of these life lessons the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of months or years even? What are we going to do with all of this temporary chaos? Are we going to let the temporary chaos bury us, or are we going to let it plant us? That's my question. And if we kick and scream and scratch and claw and never give up, we'll make our way back to the surface. And that's what a new seedling has to do. And that little seedling, if you know anything about gardening, that little plant then grows into a mature plant, and then it produces more seeds, more fruit, more flowers, 30, 60, 100-fold. The point is, whether we get buried or planted doesn't depend on what happens to us. It depends on how we respond to what happens to us. And I choose to be planted, not buried. And I hope and pray you choose the same. In between the seed time and the harvest time, there's a growth time. And during that growth time is when you prepare yourself. You prepare yourself for the harvest. During the seed time and this harvest time, in between the seed time and the harvest time is the growth time, the preparation time. And you prepare yourself during that growth time. On the farm, you get your machinery ready. You get ready for harvest. You prepare yourself. And you prepare yourself based on the size of harvest that you expect. So hopefully you're expecting a bodacious harvest. And you're preparing yourself right now for 30, 60, 100 times what you currently have. Hopefully you're preparing yourself to have a group 30, 60, 100 times the size of what you have right now. And you're preparing yourself by reading, listening, associating, bringing forth new life, new growth, producing new fruit. Is always easier said than done. Everything is easier said than done. However, it's also easier done once it's said, because the power of the tongue, the power of the words we speak is easier said than done, absolutely. It's easier done once it's said. That may not be good grammar, but it's good philosophy. Our thoughts become our words influence our actions create results. Our thoughts become things. So be careful of what you let into your mind, because that information that goes into your mind, that information sparks your imagination. And if it's negative information, then your imagination tends to be negative. That's why I don't watch very much news. I don't read the newspaper. Haven't done that for years. Information sparks our imagination. Our imagination creates our affirmations. And then our affirmations create our applications. And it's our application plus our determination that creates the realization. And that's the rap artist in me coming out there. So information, imagination, affirmations, application, determination, realization. It really isn't that mystical because we do attract in life, we do recognize in life what we expect. Life is very much a self-fulfilling prophecy. Confirmation bias, again, explains that very well because we simply recognize what we're looking for. If you're convinced that you don't like a certain person, you'll find everything to confirm why you don't like that person, and vice versa. So my last thought here is we can trade time for money, and then we can live a life of comfort and convenience. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what some people would consider a life of success. Trade time for money, live a life of comfort and convenience. It's all good. We can do that and still have time to trade for something besides money, or time to trade for more money, but then trade that money for something besides comfort and convenience. And that's what some people would call a life of significance. Now, I'm not anyone's judge. God did not call me to be anyone's judge. He actually told me not to be anyone's judge. So I'm not anyone's judge as to what constitutes a life of success or a life of significance for them. That's not my point. I think we each have to decide for ourselves. Am I living a life of success just for myself, comfort and convenience, or am I living a life of significance way beyond just my personal comfort, my personal convenience? We have to decide for ourselves. I think we have to each wake up and decide, what is my life really all about? I'm not anyone's judge, but I would like to be your nudge. I'd like to nudge you to ask yourself, am I really living a life of significance? Am I really making a difference that's really making a difference? God bless. Thank you so much.